Into the install part of this video where we're going to basically put this in just to save a lot of space, because I know traditionally with Tradition, AGM and other lithium batteries like the box style, you need to create a whole component in your back and that takes up space. And it's these things are like such a game changing thing, because you know when you go away and you get all your stuff ready and all your gear ready, and there's always that one or two things that you never have, and then you finally get it because you know how much of a game changer it's going to be. Like, this is just going to really change things.
It is. I'm super keen. Let's open it up. Okay, whoa, check it out.
Look at that.
Awesome.
That's literally like half the width of our other battery, hey?
I know.
Like, this is going to save up so much room.
It is so slim.
Rightio, so just a couple quick facts as to why this is different to all the other lithium batteries on the market. Basically, we know that it's slimline, but most importantly, what it is made out of. It's made out of really high quality, grade A lithium LiFePO 4 battery cells, okay? So what that means is that the battery cells used within this, right, have a much larger discharge rate, which means you can use a significant amount of amps at a time, but they're also built to last a lot longer, and you can use 100% capacity of this battery. You can use all 200 amps and not damage the battery. Whilst I see a lot of other ones on the market, you can only use about 80 to 90%.
So what does this mean in simpler terms? Well, this means that this is a very high quality lithium battery. The fact that it has 5 years warranty really does show the quality of it when you're out bush.
Yeah, and it's just that peace of mind as well, to get 5 years and know that in 2 years' time, if for whatever reason it does break down, you don't have to fork out more money to replace it like the other ones that are on the market and only have those 1 or 2 year warranties.
So the excellent part about this is it's got these 4 points here already pre-drilled. So it just makes it really easy for installation. All you have to do is just screw it in and bam, it's installed in.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about trying to place it in certain ways, because it's already, basically as Maddie just said, already in there and ready to go. And then we've got the 4 terminals as well. So I'm going to be able to connect this up to another 200 that I've already got in the back, because you can actually run them parallel. But I can also run something completely separate as well when I want to put a separate solar attachments or DC attachments or anything. It's really good having these other two, because not many other batteries have that. So let's crack into getting it in the back there. So where we have decided to install the battery is behind where our fridge sits and squeezed next to the freezer in the back, which would not have been achievable with a non-super slim lithium battery. So now that I've got the battery in place and I've put that backboard behind, basically what I'm going to do from here is I'm just going to re-screw, as you can see there, all the screws back in, and I'm going to start setting up the actual wires and the 12-volt parts onto those terminals there. But as you can see, it fits in, actually fits in really, really snug. Like, there's hardly any movement there. I'm obviously going to drill into those ports as well to make sure it's really secure in there, but I reckon I could just about get away with not having to do it. But corrugations, off-roading, always got to make sure that you've got everything tight in spots and placed well.
Now getting into the wiring part is easy.
So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly apply one of the appliances to the battery, as well as connect up our solar controller and DC charger.
I'm a little bit too short.
All right, so just a couple important pieces here, just to keep in mind whilst you're wiring up your vehicle. There's 3 main factors that you want to make sure that you're doing so you don't accidentally blow something up, because you are working with live wires a lot of the time. The first one being, make sure that the power cable that you're running is thick enough and big enough for the current that you're using. So if you're like us and you're using inverters, like 2000 watts and induction cookers and stuff, make sure you have like that 150 amp, 100 amp hour thickness wire, otherwise it'll heat up and you'll have melting and you have all those sort of drums. So that's hot tip number 1. Hot tip number 2, make sure you use split washers on the terminals that you're placing it on there. Even though those batteries are these batteries are really easy just to drop in and replace, you got to make sure all your connections are using the split sinkers, so when you're going over corrugations and off-roading, that those terminals don't come loose. And number 3, I was actually going to speak about venting and making sure there's ventilation, but that's the bonus about these lithium batteries, is you don't actually need ventilation. Obviously, they're not rated to go in your bonnet and you're getting up into those like 100+ degree areas, but you can have them in the back and throughout that 40-45 degree heat without too much ventilation. Stay away from cigarette lighters and joints between your electronical equipment that can come loose. So I actually Anderson plug absolutely everything. It gives you a secure load and connection, so it doesn't come loose easily, but it's also easy enough to pull apart. Depending on the Anderson plug styles, you typically can get them at 50 amps rated up, all the way up to like 150, 200 amps, but they become the bigger style ones. So that's a hot tip. Make sure that you use Anderson plugs between everything.
Then it's as simple as connecting it to your accessory and then connecting it to the battery with the provided bolt, washer and spring washer. Now it's important to note whenever you're adding any sort of accessory to the battery that you put in a fuse. So for us, we've had to put in a 200 amp fuse as we are going to be using our 2000 watt inverter. But obviously you don't need to get a fuse this big if you're only attaching low wattage things.
Right, then what you want to do is sort of a finishing touch is you want to be able to protect the wire itself, and you can conjoin the wires that you've got together to make it nice and neat with one of these protectors. I'll quickly show you how to do that. Simply all you do is you open up the split, as you can see there, and you throw it in like that, and then you just basically wean it all the way around till it's done. Once you've done that, all you simply do is cut off the rest. Now basically, as soon as you've put those terminals on, you can run whatever accessories that you want straight away, straight onto the battery. And all I've done is I've attached the 2000 watt inverter that I have here, and then I run the cord around the back, and I'll quickly show you as to how I've got that set up. So in terms of charging the battery, there's two ways that you can either go about it. You can either connect it to a solar controller and charge it through solar. So for example, we've got our solar on the roof. Or what most people do is actually connect it up to their DC charger. But just for demonstration purposes, I've run an Anson plug through the other side, as you can see just here. And it's always good to just quickly double check that it is all working. So I'll plug this into my multimeter right now. Cool, and we're sitting at 13.25 volts. Basically, so that means that it is connected up properly. And then I'm going to get the Itechworld solar controller that I've got, and I'll eventually upgrade to the DC charger, but because at the moment, because I've got the two different lithium batteries, I'm going to need two DC chargers. Just for now, I'm going to do this one. So I'm going to connect the Anderson plug that I've got in, which comes with this already, into the battery side. And then straight away, that'll show you all the information that you need. And then I've got this basically connected up. I've got two here. So I've got one that's connected up to the permanent solar power that I've got up top. And then I've got also one that here that I connect my solar blanket. So when we're out, I can have up to like 650 watts of solar power, which is absolutely crazy. So I'll plug that one in right now. Cool. And then basically, it's just as simple as that. Now moving on to installing our new 350 watt solar panel flush with the top of the rooftop tent, we need to start off by removing the old 200 watt solar panel that is sitting about 6 foot in the air and creating more wind noise than a plane at the airport. First, I have to remove the bolts off the roof racks connected into the mounts off the rooftop tent, and then give the rooftop tent roof a really good clean before installing the new one. All right, so now we removed the old solar panel off the roof, which was sitting on top of those roof racks and was giving us a lot of wind noise and basically just looked ridiculous, is we're going to mount this one flush on top. And basically, the best way I sort of found that we're going to be able to do that is to use a couple different bracket systems. So I've got this L bracket here. The way that that's going to work is I'm actually going to Tech screw that screw basically as much as I can into the top of the aluminium frame here without hitting the actual solar panel itself, because obviously if we do that, we'll damage the solar panel. The reason why that I'm using a Tech screw is because I can't, once it's sitting flush, is actually get a bolt head on the other side to screw it in, and they did come with Tech screws themselves. And then the next step after that, the rough gist is I've just thrown it up there to make sure that it does actually fit, is I'm going to mount this back on top on the normal rail system that it has, but this bolt here, I'm actually going to use on the bottom of this L bracket, like that, and it's going to sit basically midway and give it another little support system. And it's actually going to hold it on the bottom of this railing system. And then the third most important thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use these little pieces of aluminium, and I'm going to sit it on the front and the back. So even though I want it sitting flush, there does need to be a little bit of air when you're mounting these solar panels, because not only is because the roof of the rooftop is black and generates a lot of heat, you need some airflow to keep the heat out of there. Otherwise, when you start getting up into that 80+ degree heat underneath the panel, it's not only going to damage it, it's going to reduce the lifespan of it and reduce how many amps and efficiency that's going to put out. And then the final thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get some Sikaflex around the outside on the points, even though it's raised a little bit, to fill in those gaps and give it that extra little bit of sturdiness, because when you're going over those corrugations and off-road, you basically want as much structure holding the panel on top, so when you go do those stupid things like gunshot and stuff like that, where your car is going down on like a, I don't know, 45 degrees, 90 degrees even gunshot is, but even when you're going downhill, you don't want any, you don't want the weight of your product to be able to come off the system that it's on. So integrating both a bolting tech screw and the Sikaflex on the sides. I'm not looking at moving it anytime soon, so the Sikaflex is a good added bonus on there. So let's get up there and I'm bloody excited. Starting off with prepping the wiring for this solar panel to match the rest of my personal setup with the Anderson style plug-in and plug-out connectors. We first have to drill a hole in the front right-hand side, as this is where the connection from the back of the car meets the front. Then cut off the solar connectors the panel come with prior, then extend the negative and positive wires so that they both equally reach through the front of the solar panel without snagging or being too loose. Look, usually I'm a big fan of soldering wires together. However, for my own testing, I'll be crimping all of my joints with crimps to see how they hold up compared to my other 12-volt installations in the past that have not come loose and really put them to the test. It's important then to use heat shrink or tight electrical tape to then cover the crimps to reduce any wear and tear, corrosion, or any exposed wires, which really ideally you shouldn't have. Then I pull them both through the hole I created at the start of this video and connect my Anderson plug in the front once I've measured how much I want the wire to come through to ensure everything looks neat and tidy and wires aren't hanging out everywhere. Then once again, heat shrink or electrical tape to protect the wires from the metal in that hole, which you can use the hose also for better protection, which I showed earlier when I was doing the battery. And then I'm using some Sikaflex around it to also give it that extra strength. Once this is done, I'm going to drill my tech screws in with those L brackets, ensuring I leave enough space to not drill into the solar panel itself and ruining that. Oh, I tell you what, that is always nerve-wracking when you're trying to drill through here and you're only half guessing to make sure that you don't go through the panel, but that worked out well and we're able to get those tech screws in really, really tight. So we'll throw them on top now and see if we can work out that bolt situation on those rails and hopefully it all lines up sweet. All right, and then before I start bolting it down and stuff, it's always a good idea to make sure that the solar panel still works after mucking around with it. So I'll quickly throw on the multimeter and see how that goes. So I've just connected it up for demonstration purposes to make it a lot easier to view for you guys, but obviously because we've got the reflection from the outside, we're sitting at 17.5 volts there, which means that the solar panel is connecting properly. All right, now we're gonna chuck the rails up and do a quick measure. Make sure that it all roughly fits, and I'll throw those spacers in there because obviously that's going to change the length of the hole of these as well, because I also need to make the hole bigger on those brackets to fit into these, because these are 13mm head screws and the other ones are only like 11 or 12 or something like that. All right, we're almost done. This is actually looking pretty mint. Hey, check this out. I'll get on top of the car so I can show you guys a better view, because obviously it's hard with a rooftop tent. But all you can see here, ignore these for now, I'm going to make those look a lot better, but all I've done so far is I've drilled into the top of that plate there, tech screwed to the bottom there. So hot tip, ideally you want to try and get a couple there, so you want to try and get one just there and get one there, but I've just got one center and center on the other side. As you can see, there's a good gap that allows airflow between the bottom, just enough so you get while you're driving. Just enough there. But basically, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to Sikaflex around the sides, and I'm going to put a couple of like little box style things that go like just below each side on the front and the back to help stabilize it, because obviously it's been supported in the middle on the front and back. We want something to help support it on both the sides, and then I'm going to Sikaflex the whole row on each side, just because we don't need wind going through there, and that's just got to look really, really neat once I've just got to put a little black line of Sikaflex there to give it that extra little bit of support. I've also then changed over the Anderson plug on that one, so they'll just basically clip in with each other, because the one that was originally on there wasn't compatible with the ones that I use. And then I just basically check on my DC charger, and that shows that that it is actually working, if I can get that to focus. So obviously they're both flashing because they're both connected, but they're not being used. Roughly it was putting around 17 volts out, but no amperage, because it's just the reflection from the sun from the outside onto the panel, but it's just detecting that it is connected because it is getting some sort of voltage. Now, stabling the rest of the solar panel is definitely needed, and for those wondering why I did not put 4 points of contact around the solar panel, I'm not going to lie, I didn't think of it until I'd put the first screw in the middle, and then I just couldn't be bothered to take it out and re-screw all around. Now, what I'm using for the padding is literally just a rubber mat from Bunnings, which cost me about $20, as it's a solid sponge to help with vibrations, as well as strong enough to support and heat-proof and easily adaptable with Sikaflex. Once I cut out my pieces, I place them under each corner and middles of each of the side of the panel, and then I'm going to use Sikaflex to hold them in. With the finishing touch of putting on a glove, I push and smoothen it all out for both looks and structural integrity. I'll leave this Sikaflex to set for around 24 hours before driving so that it's solid enough to hold, and I believe it's going to take 4 or 5 days to be 100%. And finally, I cover up my Anderson plug at the front with black electrical tape to help with protection against the elements, obviously because this is front on while driving, and once again to make it fit in with the colours. Now that we have all this power, I'm going to run you through a few of the things that we're going to be running off it. So obviously we have now 320 amps of fully usable power, so we don't even have to use 90% of it, we can use 100% of it. But we run our inverter off it, so that's 2000 watts. We also run all of our camera gear, our induction cooker. Maddie uses all of her power supplies, just like your laptops, your phones, etc. We run our water pumps as well off that, so we can produce all the water from out from underneath our car. But also importantly, we've got our solar that can run off our fixed solar that we've got on the top, as well as our solar blanket. So we've got that 300 watt Itechworld solar blanket that pumps out a ridiculous amount of amps as well.